I'm Dolly Curtis, and I'm in Monroe today, and I am with Ned Steinmetz, and he is a stone carver extraordinaire, is how I was introduced to you. And it's also called
a memorialist.
A memorialist.
Yep, that would be the industry term today.
Okay, and this is Brown's Monument Works, and what I was told about you, Ned, is that you do something that most monument places don't do, and what is that?
That's correct. I do my own cutting and carving, a bulk of the cutting and carving here myself. I do the designing from start to finish, the complete project.
But what I don't understand is monuments are everywhere, and how do they do their cutting and carving if they aren't doing it by hand,
Most of them are having it done in granite centers around the United States that usually accumulate around quarries. Barry, Vermont would be one area, Cold Spring, Minnesota, Elberton, Georgia, or Millbank, South Dakota.
So when a person goes to order, you have such a wonderful, different choice here of stones. So if you go and you choose what is the particular type of thing that you like, be it, you've got the gamut here from very plain stones to
very simple to very elaborate.
Wonderful. I've seen some stones that have colors and figurative stones. All right, so if a person chooses a stone, then you mean they ship it out to be carved normally?
It would be either
engraved?
It would be ordered direct, and the first time the customer would see it was when it's installed in the cemetery, rather than being more involved in the process of being able to choose the color, make sure it's exactly what they want, and see me doing the work as it's being done to have a little bit more.
So you're the
involved.
last of the breed, but you're the youngest person that
I'm probably one of the younger ones left. I don't see too many people getting into this business, too many people left doing this or getting involved in it. I really...
And you work with your wife, Rosemary.
Yep, my wife, Rosemary.
And you're saying that you're also now going to try to have a place in Bridgeport near Mountain Grove.
Right across the street from Mountain Grove Cemetery.
Which is a wonderful...
We recently purchased another monument company that I had been working with the people before the last owners had passed away.
So it's just so wonderful. So you're a young person, and you're hand engraving and sandblasting, and you're doing all these things right here, and people can really be a part of selecting and choosing.
If they choose to, people can be very involved in what I do to the stone, and how involved in the design becomes, and is involved, or as far, as close to
her
as they want to be.
I saw pet stones. I know how many people, I myself, I would have loved to have known someone like you, and we had a pet for almost 20 years. We had a cat that lived almost 18 years, and at that time I would have really liked to have done something wonderful for that pet.
People, people react differently to passing. Losing a pet is no different than losing a family member.
Just sure.
And people choose to want to have a memorial for their pets as well.
I know. For years, people have buried their pets in their backyards and done something to commemorate it, but this is just wonderful meeting you. But I did meet you as a master carver. I mean, other craftsmen told me.
A master carver is probably a little bit much.
You sure?
But I do my own work. I'm very proud of my work.
How'd you learn to do this work, though? You didn't. You don't go to college to become a stone carver.
I worked under some different carvers before. More or less, I taught myself. I picked up the trade from the former owner here, Julius Viola, who was a European craftsman. Passed along a lot of the trade to me.
What's the downside to this physical? Is it your eyes you have to protect?
Your
Is
lungs.
It breathing it? I figured it's
your
breathing
lungs.
it.
Your lungs.
So you're breathing granite?
You're breathing silica.
Silica.
Either silica sand or granite dust that gets into your lungs and is not good for you. Anything that gets in your lungs isn't really good for you.
Powdery form.
But it's good work.
So hands, lungs, legs, the eyes, and you're standing on your legs and knees, you told me.
Yep, you're up and down, crouched down, constantly up and down, lifting heavy things.
Oh, lifting.
Moving, large pieces of stone.
Okay, folks, look at him now. He's 31 years old. He may not look like this forever.
Not much older.
31 and good looking, and stone carver, and in about 10 more years. Rosemary doesn't know this, but he may not look like this. Okay, so I understand some of the physical demands of the job. And other than that, there's a lot of personal. You meet the families. They're in
absolutely
distress. Hard.
Collaborating with the family to come up with something that's a meaningful design to them. This business so often has turned into what I would call cookie cutter type of memorials.
Oh, I know.
Where a family comes in, either shown page number 50, design number 64, and that's what they get. We pride ourselves more on collaborating with the family and more than talking, listening to what they're telling us about their loved one, listen to what
How much that must hurt though after a while, because some of these are children and some of these are teenagers and some of these are people lost in accidents.
You do get emotionally involved with a lot of families because you deal with them over long periods of time. Some families I've been dealing with some people for years that they can come in and do small portions of it.
They can't bring themselves
to completing it. Also, they want to come up with the best possible design that suits their loved one.
So you let Rosemary do that.
That's right.
Give that job to Rosemary.
Well, Rosemary's a fourth generation funeral director, grew up in the business.
Oh.
So her skills of communicating with families and being able to listen are incredible. They're far surpass anything that I ever had.
I thought she's real compassionate. Well, we're going to stop and go right into you're going to show us
I'll walk you through the whole process.
So let's stop talking and let's do some of that right now. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to run out of time. Good. Ready? In other words? All right, Ned, so what happens here?
Okay, this is a stone I made earlier today. I peeled off half of the stencil so that we could see exactly what I've done and what the end process is. The whole process starts with a drawing for approval, where the customer, in this case, a cemetery, has sent us in what they required to have engraved on the stone. It's a standard style and size for that cemetery.
And the stone is made of what?
The stone is made of granite. This is Barry granite that's quarried out of Barry, Vermont.
You're saying Barry.
Comes to me just as you see it, blank, and I do all the finishing work on it right here.
And this is what material right here?
This is the half of the hard rubber vinyl stencil that I've cut out that matches the drawing. Everything is generated from the same computer. The drawing then in turn, once it's authorized, I set it up so that the computer cuts the stencil exactly to how I've laid it out. I then in turn take the stencil out, mat it onto the stone, and then I'm going to use that high pressure sand and abrasive, what you see here,
right,
to blast through the openings on the stencil into the stone.
What holds this firm so this doesn't move?
The stencil has a little bit of tack on the back of it,
with that.
But there's a filler that I apply to the stone that gives the stencil something firm to stick to. Then once I've done cut it, this is what your final product is the letter is cut in deep into the stone that gives it the contrast.
So how does the computer put the lettering from the computer? Is it to print it?
It's
like a printer?
I have a large plotter inside that runs this on a large sheet, 24 inches wide, up to 36 inches wide, and there's a knife blade that cuts out to exactly how I've laid it out. So that alleviates the idea of having to recreate
So this
designs
is not hand carved then?
The stencil is cut by machine. The lettering that's carved into the stone is sand cut by me.
Oh, sand cut you call it. So it's sand cut. And that's what you're going to do next?
Correct.
All right, so does everybody follow that? So this is what he's been given as the design. This is the approved design, the family name, the dates, everything that's to be done here.
Correct.
Okay. And now we're going to move on, and what we're going to do.
I'm going to show you the whole process. I'm going to make a stone.
It's going to be noisy.
Okay.
Good. So this is going to be it, huh? This is going to be for me?
I'm going to make you a little stone.
Yeah. What's this made? What is it made of? I see all
This is a black granite. This is actually just a miniature of an actual full-size headstone. But I'm going to use it today to make you something with your name on there and a flower that I'm going to carve the flower just like I carved the flowers on the headstones.
Okay. So this is going to be just a little example of how this Ned.
What we've done, I've already prepared the stencil with the design. I've already pulled out the letters so that they're exposed. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to peel back the stencil for the flowers, and I'm going to put the shape into the leaves and into the actual dogwood flower itself.
But you haven't pulled that yet. Okay.
It's what we call a double process sandblasting, where I'm going to put the shape in, and then I'm going to reapply the stencil to the stone and then cut all my deep lines around it. That's what's going to give it a crisp, clear, definitive
sandblast it twice?
Exactly. It's called double process sandblasting. I
understand what you mean.
Okay?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to peel that back.
I got to tell you, there's Curtis names are all over this place. There's Curtis, headstones, Curtis, and I'm thinking, why is there so much Curtis here?
It's an old name from the area here. It's an old Yankee name.
You know,
Curtis.
it's my married name, but it's just I wanted to come see you today, but I didn't want to come in that big a way. Okay, so should I just sort of let you do it?
Yep. Why don't I do this one, and then I'll explain it to you once it's all done.
Okay.
What it looks like.
Is it like an X-Acto knife?
Exactly. It's just a razor knife.
And it doesn't scratch the
No, the only thing that will scratch granite is other granite or something with a carbide or diamond tip.
So it's that hard a surface that it won't scratch. That why they use it for tombstones?
Well, that's why they use it for building stones, and that's why they use it for countertops.
Oh, now understanding that's an important thing then. The reason they use granite is because it doesn't scratch almost at all unless you get to a diamond.
Or a carbide or some equally hard material. Okay, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to frost this using a steel abrasive, and I'm going to put the shape into the flowers, and then I'm going to reapply the stencil.
Okay, so that's the blasting process.
Yes, that's
You're going to wear your eye protection
I'm gonna
for
wear
sure.
my eye protection and my breathing respirator.
Okay, because you told me that is the problem with all of this. This is your tools.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to use, rather than a large nozzle, I'm going to use this small tip. That's what's going to allow me to do things like...
small size scale.
Well, what I can do is I can begin to put shape into the edges of the leaves. Just like when I carve a rose or carve a particular type of flower, I can get much greater shape into that flower.
Right, and depth.
Exactly, rather than just surface blasting.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. So if a person was going to do the artwork that you have around here with its different depths to it, they would use different heads on this?
We would use different tips, different types of nozzles, different diameter bores.
Right.
And that would give us our ability to cut. We would also use carbide tip hand chisels, which would be an example of when I do traditional V-carved letters, as opposed to something where the letter is just going to be just skin cut right into the stone. Then I would go in with carbide tip chisels and actually carve it to a clean V, like I've done on the first two letters of this name.
Mm-hmm. So that would be different than this, because...
Correct. This is going to be a different process.
And how about all these tools in here? Look how many tools you have.
Those are all just more of the same different type of chisels, bushing chisels, different
Are they heavy?
stroke hammers.
They're pretty heavy.
All carbide tips.
So steel is what you're saying.
Steel and carbide.
And what are these heavier ones? These are really big ones.
Those are just different parameter air hammers. They're pneumatic hammers that are gonna. There's a hammer inside that vibrates back and forth when air is applied to the hose, and gives me the ability to operate the chisel.
At more and heavier and less heavier air pressure to make heavier. So that's another way that you can make the depth less and more.
Correct.
Change the textures.
Only when I'm doing things, carving things by hand, I use those. Like V-cut letters, or doing a raised flower or a raised type of design, or raised lettering. When I do flowers and things like that, most of the time it's going to be that sand carving process.
Okay.
Okay?
It's interesting. How many years did you say you've been at this?
This will make about 10 years.
I know you told me you moved here in 1999, so you're relatively new to this location.
Yep, we moved in here. We bought this business, my wife and I, about 3.5 years ago.
In Monroe.
In Monroe here, and we've lived in the house ever since, and we really love it. We enjoy it. It's always been a husband and wife here, from Stephen and Mrs. Brown to Julius and Mrs. Viola.
A family business.
And,
right on this
and
intersection with Dr. Mike's Ice. This is some intersection here.
Sure, it's tough between the ice cream and the country pizza next door.
Yeah, I mean, keeping the weight down.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's the best ice cream around, and the pizza place is pretty good too. But it's a good location for traffic for you.
Sure, people recognize us here. Also, they recognize that this has been a monument company here since 1931. People who've been in town a long time.
But I mean, if you say you've been a monument or carver or been in the funeral monument business 10 years, you're not that old.
No, I started in this. Actually, I started my first was in the funeral business when I was about 16, 17. And then I kind of gradually worked into permanent memorialization. and got more and more interested in granite carving and sculpting, and stayed with that, and just decided to make that my full-time career.
Well, we're glad you did, because you're saying you're one of very few people that do this work. It's
There's
very wonderful that you're here in Fairfield County.
There's not a lot of people left who actually do this work themselves. It's unfortunately, to lack of a better word, a dying business. People are not going into this every day, and I enjoy it. I enjoy my craft. I enjoy learning from other carvers and sculptors. There's not a day goes by that I don't learn something new. Stone behaves in different ways every time you carve it.
But it's not affected by the temperature?
No, not really. It's the only thing affected by the temperature out here is me.
Is you, of course. I mean, I don't know how you do this when it gets to be January, February. You got a little shop here, but...
I've got a shop here in the inside shop down in Bridgeport where I can do more work.
That's where you're going to be able to do more work.
Be able to do more work inside, but...
February, January.
Yep.
I mean, here we are in November and it's already cold.
Yep.
Hands, nose, everything, right. Okay, let's see you do your thing.
Okay.
Oh, Ned, that is just absolutely fantastic. Are you pleased?
Yeah, well, considering it's not a flower that I've ever carved so small, but I didn't have to wait for anyone to pass away to make it. So
what?
nice.
Now this weighs a lot.
Yeah.
So,
this is actually just a miniature of a full-size stone.
I'm so tickled. So very nice. Can everybody see? Oh, brother, this really. Wait, it's a black granite.
India black granite.
India black granite. It's the nicest thing. I mean, I don't know where we'll put it, but Victor, I'm sorry. It's my cameraman, Victor Cromwell. Are you jealous? Thank you very much, Ned.
Sure am. You're very welcome.
Victor's jealous. I just wanted to say, how now did you design this?
Well, that's a whole nother process, and why don't we show you that now?
Can you show me how
Sure.
this
Sure, how we
all
designed
just
the whole
happened?
thing. Sure.
Okay, let's go to that part.
Okay.
So joining us now is Rosemary Talboys, who also is part of this wonderful team. And Rosemary, tell me a little bit about Ned's computer skills.
Well, Ned is a monument designer, so the computer is a very important part of his work. He creates designs and produces his drafting from this computer.
So how is that different than what anybody else would do in any other computer, monument?
Most monument dealers do not have computers. Their drafting is done in another place like Vermont or wherever the manufacturing is done.
So then how do they work, from ready-made designs or from designs
There are
of...
standard designs, and some designs have to be created to meet specifics, but Ned can do that all himself here.
You're standing here like, yes. So that is what happens?
Yep, I do all of my own custom drafting, whether or not I carve the stone or I outsource it to a third-party carver. All the designing and all the drafting is done here by me.
Well, do you have an art background, or how did that happen in your life?
I don't know. I guess it was just natural. It's just something I fell into.
Really? So you able to, with years of practice now, is it CAD system or is it?
It's a CAD system. I had the opportunity to work on the first computer aided design systems specifically made for the monument business. So I've been working on that for about as long as I've been in the monument business altogether. So every design I've created, I've kept over the years, and I've been able to build a large library of my own custom design.
I see. So you can pull pieces from here or there.
Exactly. Pieces that I've, once I make a flower or a specific saint or a specific design, I can reuse that and modify it in all sorts of different designs.
Now, Rosemary, do you get involved in this too? What part Or are you just run the,
Usually I give him the information so that he can input it into the computer based on what the customer is telling us if he doesn't meet with him himself. And basically I do a lot of the transferring to the customer.
all right, so can we see any of this, or is this going to be too difficult? I know.
No. This is actually one, if the camera can pick it up, this is actually one custom design that I just recently put together for a family that wanted a dogwood branch type of design. They wanted shamrocks worked in there and wedding rings. So this is one custom design. Another one that I've done here is this is another custom design that I've been working on with a customer that's going out to a cemetery in Westchester. It shows a beautiful raised hand-carved lily, a cross design. It was all a custom shape. It was designed by myself and the customer in several different collaborations.
Now, what happens after the design is done, and then over here on this other piece of equipment, that's your plotter. Then it comes out full scale.
Correct.
To
Everything I do here can be transferred either directly to a sculptor who would be doing a three-dimensional carving for me, or I generate the stencil here.
Oh, I see.
This would be an example of a design that I just completed recently. The computer is going to cut out the design for me, and I will then in turn transfer it to the process that we saw earlier.
We had it outside on the stone. It was on this rubberized stencil.
Correct.
So that comes right off of your...
Comes right off of the plotter. Everything that I design, exactly how I design it, the plotter cuts it that way. The computer follows only the instructions that I give it.
All right, so after this happens, and then the time is all outdoor work. Winter, summer, you're working outside.
Working outside year-round during inclement times, or when the stone is just physically too large for me to handle it. I have cooperating carvers that I work with up in Vermont that would do, as an example, I worked on a stone that was 12 feet, and it probably weighed about 9 tons. I had that outsourced to a large carver who has that facilities to carve
Move
something
that
large.
stone around. Now, when you were doing some of that work outside, sandblasting, it was flying all around because Victor Cromwell, the cameraman, was starting to get concerned about himself. So this is pretty intense doing some of this work.
Yes, it is. It is different abrasives, give you different contrasts, give you different results in cutting the stone. So you want to be able to open yourself up to using those different abrasives, but they all do behave differently.
Interesting.
Some bounce all over the place, some are very painful to work with, but
outside, the site, the design, the personal part to it with the people, the design work on the computer. This is the hands-on active part to it. Then you got the difficult part, the weather, your physical demand on yourself to produce it. There's just so many parts to this.
Yep, there's also deadlines. People oftentimes require that the stone be in for, we're always rushing for either a holiday, if not an anniversary of birth or passing, families gathering together. There's just all sorts of constraints that things need to be done on a timely manner.
So sometimes you have to work around the clock?
We often do work around the clock. My daily schedule usually starts when the sun comes up, and I'm usually drafting into the long hours of the evening.
Amazing. Well, I was told that Ned Steinmetz is an unusual, extraordinary person. He's young, and he's just got all this spontaneity. You have wonderful spontaneity, I see within you. Rosemary, you're a wonderful backup person within your own right. I'm sure you have plenty of...
Couldn't do it without my wife. It's Rose, again, her communication skills and her ability to deal with people frontline who have suffered a terrible loss. She just makes it a lot easier for them, guides them in the right direction, and that's you can't ask for anything better than that.
Well, it's been an extraordinary experience for me. My whole experience with tombstones was calling up and purchasing the stones for my parents. I'm sorry that I didn't know you at that time and didn't get more involved. I see it can be quite a creative thing that one could do to make it more personalized, and I've learned a lot today. And I thank you for taking this. I know how precious your time is, and it was extremely interesting. and it can be extremely creative.
We thank you for coming.
I wish I had some time to have fun, or you had some time to have fun, because I'd like to try that sandblasting, not do it myself, but see it done, you know, just what you could do with that.
Sure.